Hi everybody, let us start a new application today. It is weather details. Okay, so in this app let us try to get the weather details of a particular location. It means you can pass a location, based on that location you will get the weather related weather details related to that particular location. Okay, so this will be the task. So let us start. So before that, what all the concepts we will learn in this application. Okay, so after completion of this application you will understand what do you mean by client server communication, how to perform client server communication, and what are threads, how to use threads in Android application, what are handlers, why we need handlers in Android application, and what do you mean by AsyncTask. Okay, so all those things I will explain. Okay, so let us start with client server communication. So basically, what do you mean by client and what do you mean by server, or what is client server communication? Okay, in a simplest way, client is one software. Okay, so this I'll call it as a client. Okay, and your server is another software. Okay, both are softwares. Now if you want to perform a communication between these two, it means if I say both are softwares, why this is called as client, or why this is called as server? Okay, now assume this is one software or one application where you need some information. Okay, so that information is present inside this particular software. So now it has to collect that information from your server. Now for that, what it will do, it will send a request to this particular software that is called as server. Remember, the software which requests the information, means which asks for the information, that is called as client, and the software which provides the service or which provides the information is called as server. Okay, now whenever your client sends a request for an information to the server, now in this it contains some methods. Okay, and this particular method will be executed and it will send the response to your client. Okay, now the question rises, where these two applications are existing. It means whether they are on the same machine, or whether they could be on different machines also. Okay, obviously this software may be on the same, these softwares may be on the same machine, or they may be on the different machines also. Okay, now if it is a different machine, how these two softwares will communicate with each other? So then comes concept of internet. Okay, and web services. Okay, so through internet you can send the request to the server and you can get the service that is called as web service as a response. Okay, so now whether you are sending the request or whether you are getting the response, it should be in a particular format. Okay, so for that your client server communication supports different types of format. In that the major one is XML and JSON format. Even you can send the request or you can get the response in the form of Word format or PDF, okay, or HTML or whatever. Okay, but majorly, because I am mentioning these two things because we will use JSON and XML in Android. Okay, so these are the regularly used formats in client server communication if you consider the Android. Okay, so this is about your client server communication. It means there is one software which carries certain information okay, and there is another software which requires that information. So your client, that the client will send request to the server, it means which carries the information, and the server will give the information to the client in certain formats. So this concept is called as client server communication. Okay, so now as I told, why in this section I told that I will explain about threads, handlers and async task. So we have understood what do you mean by client server communication, but why we need threads here, or why we need handlers or async task here, what is the importance, or what do you mean by thread actually? Okay, so for that I will show one example. Okay, I will select okay, I will select Microsoft Office. Okay, here I have selected the Word. So this is one software, okay, or you can call it as one application. Now suppose if I try to enter something here, okay, hi, hello, okay, and how are you? So when I do this, okay, when I do this, can you see this? I am typing hi, hello, how are you, HRU. It is nothing but how are you, okay. So at that time it is giving one error here. It is showing like a red mark, red underline, okay. So why it is? Because the spelling is wrong. It means whenever I am typing something here, simultaneously this software is checking for the spell. Okay, so it means at a time it is doing two tasks. If not, it is doing two functionalities. So to do this, see, if you want to perform one particular action, or if you want to execute a particular functionality, so for that any software has to execute a piece of code. Okay, now if you want to do another functionality, then for that also another piece of code has to be executed. So if I say here, whenever I am typing something, simultaneously it is doing the spell check also. Means there are two pieces of codes, or two different piece of chunk of code which has been executed simultaneously. So why we need this, or how it is possible? Okay, I already explained why we need this, because whenever you are typing something, it has to be checked for the spelling. So in the same way, if you want to do two tasks simultaneously in a Android application, okay, then you have to go with the thread concept. Okay, basically thread is a separate execution path. For example, now I want to design one audio player, okay, where the functionality is like this. First I want to display the page, that is home page, where you can see the audio file, or the image related to audio file, and controls like play, pause, okay, and resume, next, forward, backward. So all those buttons I want to display, and whenever I click on play button, it has to start playing the music. So whenever I click on next button, okay, it has to download the file from the internet, and it has to play the song. If not, when I click on play, it has to download certain files in the background. Okay, suppose I want to play songs related to a particular movie, I will call it as M. Now the movie M contains like 5 songs, okay, and I want to play all the songs. So at that time, first I'll click on the play button, it will download one song, and it will start playing the music. Now in the background we can download all other songs also, so that we can start playing the music continuously. So if this is the requirement, now how to do this? Because in here it has to do two functionalities. It has to display the UI to the user, and it has to play the music. In the background it has to download the files also. So whenever there is a situation like this, where you have to perform two functionalities at a time. Okay, at that time you can go for the threads. If not, there is a functionality, suppose in the same case if you want to download something, okay, think if you are downloading a particular audio file in the main UI itself. In the Android application, whenever user clicks on anything, any button or any text view, edit text, if the UI is not responding for more than 5 seconds, then your Android system will kill your application. It will try to close the application. Means UI is not responding. Okay, so Android will not tolerate that and it will try to kill the application. So in this case, whenever you want to do some background task, or whenever you want to run like the task which takes a huge time to perform that action, so in these cases you have to go for the thread concept. As I told, thread is nothing but a separate execution path. Okay, so it means I will show here. Okay, see, I have a piece of code here. Okay, this is my like function 1. Okay, and here it is function 2, and here I have a piece of code. Now my requirement is I want to run this first, but simultaneously I want to run this also, whereas this cannot run on the main thread, because if not in the UI, because it takes long time. So at that time what you can do, you can run this functionality or this function in the same way like in the main thread. Okay, if not in a regular way, like see, each and every application will it consist of a main thread. Means even you may not describe or define it explicitly, but still whatever the action till now we have explained, means displaying a button or clicking on the button, interacting with the Android applications, all those things will run on a particular thread. Thread is nothing but, as I told, it's a piece of code which will be executed in a separate path. So now if you want to display images, if you want to display a button, or if you want to give action to a button, so all those things are present on the thread, and that thread is called as main thread. Okay, but as I told, this function 2, it takes a long time, so you can't run this on the main thread, on the UI thread. So what we can do, so this has to be run in the background, this has to be executed in a separate execution path, and that path is called as thread. Now another hurdle is, now I will execute this in a separate path, but the result has to be sent to the main thread, because whatever user sees or whatever user interacts is with the main thread only. Now after downloading a file here, it has to be sent to the main thread so that you can start playing on the main thread. So how to perform this? Because this is separate execution path and this is a separate execution path. Now you have to communicate between them. So for this you need handlers. You need handlers. Okay, so now I will show the thread, how exactly thread and handler will work. Okay, so just I will repeat this. Thread is a separate execution path, okay, where you can run a particular functionality which takes long time. Okay, or you can say it as a AV task or AV functionality. Okay, that has to be run in the thread. Suppose for example downloading a files from internet, if not writing something into a file. Okay, so all those things has to be run in the background. Okay, so now I will show the structure. Suppose I will create new one here. See, if I say this is my main thread, this is my main thread. Now this main thread will associate with two things. One is called as message queue and another one is called as looper. Okay, so what do you mean by message queue means, see, whatever the functionalities that has to be run, or whatever the code that has to be executed, or what are the messages that has to be executed. For example, if you want to display the button, or if you want to give action to the button, if you want to display some text in the text view, so all those things will be executed in the main thread as a messages. So whatever the action has to happen in the main thread or in the UI thread, that will happen in the main thread, and it will be considered as a messages. Now in the message queue, all those functionalities will be there, all those messages will be there. Okay, something like M1, M2, M3, and it will be in a queue. Okay, so what this looper will do means, it will pick the messages one by one based on priority, and it will give it to the see, it will give it to the handler. Okay, where handler can execute this, So in the same way, as I told, if you have a different thread here, I have a separate execution path. Okay, but now if you want to communicate from this thread to your main thread, so what I told, you need the handler. Okay, so here what you have to do, you have to send message using handler to the main thread. But as I explained, handler is used to execute a piece of code, but here we are doing it in a different way. It means handler used in two ways. Remember, it can post the message, okay, or it can receive the message. Okay, it can post the message or it can receive the message. It can receive and it can execute the message, or it can post the message to another thread. So this is how the thread will work. So basically threads are of two types. One is thread and another one is called as handler thread, because in the handler thread this looper will be in active state, so that these things can happen in the handler thread. But in normal thread also you will be having the looper, but it will be in a inactive state. Okay, so you will learn all these things like what do you mean by thread, what do you mean by handler, or what do you mean by handler thread, okay, looper, message queue, all those things in Java. Okay, please refer our Java course. Okay, you will learn in depth about all these concepts. Okay, so now I will start with only thread. I'll explain why we need thread. Already I have explained why we need thread, but in our application, as I told, we will see how to implement the weather details application. Okay, so in this application, why we need thread? Okay, it means already I have explained, like, see, if you want to get the weather details, from where you have to get it? So see, in the internet, if not in the server. Okay, so if not in the internet itself, you have a lot of open source APIs from which you can get the weather details. Means people have already developed some softwares, okay, and regularly they will be updating the weather details, and from them, if not from that software, you can extract the details. As I already explained, if you want to get the details from some other application or from some other software, you have to go with the client server communication. And also I have explained, if you want to go with the client server communication, it takes long time. Now if you want to perform a long time task, then you have to go with the threads. So this is how threads and your client server communication has linked. Now there is one more hurdle here. Okay, suppose if I want to use the thread, then the basic steps that you have to follow is, okay, first you have to create the thread. Okay, you have to create the thread. Then you have to start the thread. And after that, after getting the result, you have to communicate result to the main thread. So thread communication. So you have to perform the thread inter-thread communication. Means after getting the result in your thread, you have to communicate this particular result to main thread. So all these actions you have to take care. So this was the procedure when you are developing applications in Java, but in Android they have made it very easy. So they have introduced one concept called as AsyncTask. So what this AsyncTask will do? Okay, so in the AsyncTask, basically it provides three methods. One is pre-execute, then do in background, and post execute. It means, suppose if you want to download a file, okay, before starting the download, would you like to do anything? Is there any pending task that has to be done before starting the download? So that can be written inside the method called as pre-execute method. Okay, I'll explain this AsyncTask in detail by writing code. So just as of now understand, like if you have any functionality that has to be done, like before starting the background process, it means if I want to show a alert message, if not I want to show a progress dialog to the user while downloading the file, that can be done inside the pre-execute method. Now whatever the functionality or like whatever the code you have to write to download a file, okay, which is a time consuming task, so that has to be written inside the method called as do in background. Now after getting the result in do in background, then the post execute method will be executed, where you can directly communicate to the main thread inside the post execute method. So all these tasks will be done in one async task. If you create async task, so all these functionalities will be taken care inside the async task itself. So instead of going for thread, we can go for the async task. It will be very easy. As a beginner, you can learn async task. Later on, you can implement using thread also. Based on the requirement, you have to use the thread or async task. Okay, so in this application I will explain how to use the async task. If you want to see how to use thread and handler, please go through our Java tutorials. Okay, in that you will find in detail explanation about all these concepts. Okay, so I will start with async task and I will show how to use async task to download something or to download some information or to perform a client server communication in Android application. So this I will explain in next session. Thank you.